Welcome to Thoroughbred Racing Forecast Kentucky Derby Special, the fastest 30 minutes on television. Coming to you from fabulous Las Vegas. Thoroughbred Racing Forecast.
And welcome back to our Kentucky Derby post-race show. I'm Trip Mitchell. Dennis Tobler is waiting in the rings. We'll talk to him a little later, but we have on Mark KLEIN, who was our guest last week. And Mark, great job handicapping the Derby. What are your thoughts?
First of all, you need to know that the reason I've got a coat on, I just got back from grief counseling. I reserve the week after the Kentucky Derby every year for grief counseling therapy, and this year I needed it so badly. I've prepared an interesting chart for you, Tripp, and here it is. I hope this comes through on our screen. I think this simplifies things a little bit. I've prepared a chart here to show how the Derby unfolded for me. The blue section, that is a bar graph representation of the speed at which a photon covers 1 meter of distance, as expressed by the formula y times 1m. That's a bar representation. The green bar graph is the amount of time it took me to realize that I had no chance for my selection to come in the money. I had Rock Your World in the Derby, and 2 steps out of the gate, he was done. He got batched sideways, never recovered. I thought John Velasquez on the winner did a great job of getting his colt to the front. I thought Joel Rosario did a less than stellar job of stopping his horse, getting it set straight, and getting back in the race. Maybe never had the horse for it in the first place, but it was a hard race for me to watch, knowing that 3 jumps out of the gate, Rock Your World was done.
Well, here's the situation. Dennis and Jeff had great derbies all the way around. Their picks did a beautiful job. So, Mark, you came in third on our specialized team, but you're definitely in the top 3.
Well,
you're in the money.
At least I had a show ticket somewhere. That's good to know. The best I ran, I had Midnight Bourbon and Obesos running 5th and 6th, and that's as close as I got. I watched replays of the race. Every trainer they interviewed, what went wrong? They asked Pletcher and Brown, what went wrong? They all said the same thing. I have to watch the replay and see what kind of trip we got. I've watched the replays. It's like watching a tape of my 5-year-old niece's soccer game. There's a lot of action, a lot to yell about, but none of it's going to make any sense to you in the world that we know of horse racing. The Derby is like no other race in the world, and this year was a perfect example of it.
Well, you know, there is a justice in the world of sports TV ratings. The Derby has outdrawn the NFL draft, and I was very pleased to see that.
I love everything about that. It outdrew all the award shows combined. That's what I love. It outdrew every award show on TV combined. I love it. And one of the areas in which our sport needs improvement is getting eyeballs on it and then keeping those eyeballs on for the next several races to get people involved in the horse's life story, not just the one big day.
And being a resident of Louisville, been around horse racing forever, how was the buzz for the race last week? Was it as strong as you wanted it to be?
Oh, it was very exciting. I mean, people were just so glad to have live racing back at Churchill Downs, to have the Derby, to have it go on television on a picture-perfect day for weather, to have nothing burning in the background in terms of looting and protests. I mean, the things that weren't there were as important as the things that were there. No rain, no urban riots, no social justice causes being created up and down the paddock. It was a sports day for sportsmen and a horse racing day for horsemen. And believe me, I'm concerned about the world's problems as much as anyone. But when I go to the track, I want to concentrate on horses. And that's what we had on Derby Day here in Louisville. And it was a great thing to see.
How about the handle? Were everyone happy with the amount wagered?
Monstrous handle. I have to believe they were. My own personal wagering handle. I was talking about this with my therapist earlier this week. I suffer from something called Baffert-Battered syndrome, where if I bet on Baffert, he loses. When I don't, he wins. And so this happens to me every year. The last time I had to go through this was with a friend of mine named Pat Day, the Hall of Fame jockey Pat Day. If I bet on Pat, he would lose. If I didn't bet on him, he would win. And I know Pat Day. He's a friend of mine and a great guy. So I stopped betting him, and he went to the Hall of Fame. So Bob should send me a telegram in terms of my wagering history with him. But the handle was great. The action was great. And the stories around the horses were all good. Medina Spirit had a great story behind him, being a smaller horse and a front runner with a little bit of bravery that he had to show to hold the horses off at the end. Just a great Derby to watch.
Great. And we've got Junior right in front of you. It looks to be wonderful. And you indicated that your young friend there can dig up a backyard better than a thoroughbred can.
Well, you know, my dog is an idiot savant, and I'm going to emphasize the idiot. Whenever I try to do something in front of my computer, he decides to get involved, and that's what he's doing now. Though he likes you all because he's not biting the screen. So congratulations, you seem to do well with animals. On a normal day, he's coming through the screen at you. So I'm going to have him pick my Derby selections next year. I'm going to put the daily racing form out in the yard. Wherever he digs the biggest hole in, that's what I'm going to bet on.
Okay, that's as good a system as ever. And you're laughing about betting against Baffert. There's some people in the NFL who will never bet against Tom Brady again, and they've lost enough Super Bowls to know that sometimes when you've got the greatest of all time, good idea to go with them.
I try to drill down as deep as I can analyzing these races, especially when I look at the replays. I did notice an interesting thing on the replay. Known Agenda stopped at the half-mile pole to check his Waze app to see where the next traffic jam was going to be. You know, with the way the Derby is shaped up recently, with how you have to qualify to get in, the points you have to get, and the way you have to get them, you either need to be first and second at the first turn or last. You need a clear path. You cannot hold your horse back into 8 through 15 and wait to see what happens, to see how your trip's going to turn out. And that's the Derby lesson from the last 10 years moving forward. They're all going to be these first and second front runner types. And that's what Baffert does so well, is prepare. You know, his second string beats your first string to death, no matter who you are. And they all seem to be able to get out of the gate on time in front in these big races. And even races that are always hear it's won by closers. You need a horse that can come from behind, that can get the last quarter mile. Not in these Derbies. They're on the lead all the way, and they're on the lead at that quarter pole. And that seems to be his specialty. So yeah, the horses I was betting on, they were all in mid-pack looking for a trip. And you'll get a trip, all right. You won't like it much, but you'll get it. So that's just the way it shook out this year.
Well, Mark, thanks for checking in. Your humility, I thought we were watching The Big Bang Theory there when you brought the charts. I was very impressed, but fun to have you part of the show, and we're going to check in with you next week and get some thoughts on the Preakness.
I look forward to it. Just keep this in mind. One of the great racetrack aphorisms of all time: the less you bet, the more you lose when you win. And so I think I'm going to just make that my ongoing mantra for these. Regarding the science chart, you know, if you can't bring good happy camping, bring good entertainment. That's what I do.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I get my winners from Dennis Tobler.
And welcome back to the show. We've got handicapper Jeff Culler with us. And Jeff, how would you rate your performance picking at the Derby?
I would rate my performance as great, to be quite honest. I mean, I would. I had Medina Spirit. Medina Spirit won. So, and when you only pick 4 horses to win and one of your horses is the winner, they call that Dutching your bet. And you still come out a winner overall. So gambling wise, I was a big winner on Saturday.
Tell me about the process you used going into the Derby and looking at it a couple days later. What were you really happy about? What would you do different?
Well, you know, if every gambler could have back what he would have done differently, I mean, wouldn't every gambler love to have that back, right? You know, it was an interesting Derby. There were a couple of things I did not count on. I did not count on a blistering pace, which is what we got. This was the final time of the Derby wasn't overall that fast, but I tell you, the opening half mile in that Derby was just blistering. I also didn't count on a couple of horses getting jostled around, and those were horses that I had in my bet. So I didn't count on that. But you know what? I will never make excuses like that in a field of 19 horses. That will happen. So you can't blame that. I'm not going to whine. I'm not going to cry. But that's what happened. You know, a couple of my horses got jostled around.
So looking back on it, who, Baffert, who you've known for a lot of years,
Sure.
How important was he to the win for his horse?
Trip, I will keep replaying this in my mind as long as we go. The entire word out of the Baffert barn going into Derby week was, he's here. We're going to have fun. We're just going to enjoy ourselves on Derby week. He has no chance. He has no chance. And you always want, I call him the affable Baffert. The affable Baffert. How much did the affable Baffert really believe that? And how much was he just flying his horse right underneath the radar and going to take us all by surprise at 13-1 odds? You never really know. I do think this Derby may have taken Baffert a little bit by surprise, but you just can't bet against the guy, especially when he had a Hall of Fame jockey, John Velasquez, on top of his horse. You know, you can't count the guy out.
My wife indicated exactly those two things. It's Bob Baffert and a Hall of Fame jockey. Why didn't you put money on him? So a wife is always right after the fact. What were some of the other surprises in the Derby, and what were your takeaways?
Well, I tell you, a huge surprise was Mandaloon. Mandaloon, this horse stuck right with Medina Spirit the entire race. They were right there together. Mandaloon now, Brad Cox, who is his trainer, has indicated that Mandaloon will not be continuing on the Triple Crown Trail, probably going elsewhere. But, Mandaloon came out of nowhere. So I was, I underrated that horse a lot. I'll admit that. Strong second place finish. You can't do any better.
Fantastic. And so your thoughts, we're going to get together, Jeff. We're going to get a chance to sit down next week, do a Preakness preview show. You're going to give out, I hope, some other winners. Is that your plan?
Well, Trip, to be honest with you, I as a public handicapper, I will not make any sort of predictions on the Preakness at this point, because we don't even know the field. We know who's not in the Preakness. We know from the Derby there are some high-profile horses that will not be in the Preakness. We know Essential Quality will not be running in the Preakness. We know that Hot Rod Charlie will not be running in the Preakness. Caddo River, who did not run in the Derby, Brad Cox has said that he will not be in the Preakness. This is going to be an interesting Preakness field, but as a public handicapper, I'm going to bite my tongue right now. I don't want to say anything about the Preakness until we see the field. Medina Spirit has opened up at 7-2 odds. I think Concert Tour may be the horse to watch right now, but I don't want to say anything about the Preakness until we really see the field and see where these horses are.
And by the way, we have to give you kudos before we let you go. You have the best shirt in the show. And if there are odds on that, you're going to open a big favor.
Well, thank you. I mean, they always say if you're not smart enough to know what you're talking about, at least try to look like you do. So, I mean, that's just,
Hey, Jeff, thanks. Can't wait to talk to you next week. And we're going to have some fun next week for the Preakness. You take care. Thanks for everything.
All right. Thanks a lot, Trip.
Be sure and check us out and like us on Facebook at Thoroughbred Racing Forecast. We'll have photos of the shoot and a lot of information. So check us out on Facebook at Thoroughbred Racing Forecast.
And welcome back, Dennis Tobler. You had a very, very good Derby. Congratulations.
Yes, sir. My top 4 horses, 3 of them finished into money with the $16 winner, of course. And if that Mandaloon would not have split my horses, I would have took home stacks. So my stacks, I mean $100 bills wrapped up 100 at a time.
Well, how did you tell me about when you were watching the race? Your emotion?
Well,
When-
I thought Essential Quality really had a tough trip. He was bumped out of the gate by one of our picks, Rock Your World. I think all three of us had Rock Your World. He bumped Essential Quality out of the gate, and then going around the curve, heading for home, while our other horse, Hot Rod Charlie, bumped into Essential Quality. And I think that probably cost him the race because he didn't get beat very far, and he was way wide the whole trip. That being said, Medina Spirit's just like another Bob Baffert horse. He gets out in the front and goes fast, and he goes so fast they can't catch him at the end. So that's what happened in this race. You never want to overlook Baffert, that's for sure.
So one of our other handicappers, Jeff, has a relationship with Baffert and speaks very highly of him. But do you ever, to bet on Baffert is not cheap. Talk a little bit about the value that a trainer brings to the race and how that affects handicapping.
Well, the trainer means a lot these days because the good trainers get the good horses, and there's not that many of them. And Baffert's the very best there ever was. He started in the quarter horse business in New Mexico. I mean, he worked his way up as a kid on a horse farm. So he knows everything there is to know about horses. And by far, he's the best trainer that's ever trained, ever. There's never been a better trainer than Bob Baffert. So we will get him, you will give him the kudos for what we need. And I think he's going to be a big force in the next two races too.
Do you, looking forward, do you see a Triple Crown threat this year, this time around, or do you wait and take a look?
Well, I think we still too early yet to see who's going to be in the Preakness. There's 9 or 10 horses lined up for it. At this point, I'm not so sure anybody can catch Medina Spirit because the Preakness will be a shorter distance. So we'll have to see who the horses are in the race. We won't know that until next week. Out of the Derby, though, it looked to me like what we said on the TV show last week was that the also ran horses, the poorer horses, would be way behind. And that's the way it worked out. I remember Mark Klein saying that Obesos would be up there for a long shot. Obesos got up and finished 5th. So he was right there. And the Midnight horse, he got bumped around pretty good at the start too, never got out. He was supposed to be on the lead, never made the lead, and that cost him, but he ended up 6th. So all of our horses that we picked, the 3 handicappers on the show, were in the top 6.
Would you prefer in the future, Dennis, not to have 20 horses go at the Derby?
No, I think the historical legacy of the Derby should be just exactly that. You know, there's about 30,000 horses born, race horses born every year that may have the potential to win the Derby, and to get it down, you know, to 20 is a pretty amazing feat in itself. And you need to give them that shot because they're just young horses and they're just now coming into their own.
Okay. What would you, if looking back on your handicap and you darn near made it, what would you do different?
Well, I wouldn't do anything different because Mandaloon was some sort of a, I don't know, outside freak, I guess, that kind of cut the middle of us there, got a perfect run through. And I do believe Hot Rod Charlie and Essential Quality knocked themselves out of the race at the end. And I couldn't put Mandaloon in. And if he runs in the Preakness, I won't put him in the Preakness either. It's just one of those things. Out of 20 horses, if you get 3 out of the 4 you pick in, that's most of the time best you're going to do.
So you're very happy with the job you did, and the people who bet your picks are probably very happy as well.
Oh yes, because we stretch them out, and we had the vertical wagers, the pick 3s, the pick 4s, the pick 5s, and we had Medina Spirit in every one of those. So yes, everybody's very happy. We seem to make money on every one of these races because we have it boiled down to what's necessary to win. And I think the Preakness will do the same thing. I'm looking forward to doing the Preakness show.
Well, Dennis, this has been a lot of fun. I can't wait till next week. The Preakness preview, give out some more winners, get some great information, and have some fun. That's about as good as it gets.
That's for sure. And it's sure been fun. And I sure love all the guys on the show. So until we get to the Preakness show, goodbye and good luck, everybody.
Perfectly said.